she can see we were pretty conservative. Anyway, we started dating. I'd take her to places. So finally, after about 5 or 6 months, wasn't it? We got engaged.
Yeah.
How'd you ask her to marry you? Were you worried? Were you nervous? Did you know she'd marry you, or?
Oh, I knew pretty well, yeah. I knew she liked me. So we got engaged, and she went up on the farm to her folks, you know, and I had to ride I didn't have a car then. I had to take a ferry boat that run from Seattle up to Bellingham. I rode up there, and the next morning about 8 o'clock they were there when the boat lost her and her folks, and and I got in with them and talked, and I said to her father, I haven't asked you, is it all right if I marry Samoria? And he said, oh yeah, I suppose it is. So we went to the courthouse and got the license, and we went out to the farm where they lived, and that night they had a member of the church, an elder, come to perform the marriage.
He was a bishop. Bishop married it.
So we got a lot of tinware and dishes and stuff. Didn't we, dear?
They had a chivalry on us.
Yeah, they had a chivalry. They rang cowbells and shot a gun off or two and hopped and yelled and hollered. And then Uncle Aurora and Uncle Henry and them, they sang a song. And the moral of the song was that Lucky Jim was the guy that didn't get tangled up with a marriage. They said, Lucky Jim, oh, how I envy him. They'd sing that song because he got out of the marriage because girls didn't get him in. So they had quite a lot of fun there with me. And we had to sleep upstairs in the bed upstairs. And they went up and got some cords, strong cords, and there's a window there, and they tied these cords, long cords, on the bed, on the quilts and things, you know, and had them concealed so you didn't notice it. And they run out through the window and down, so down below outside they could pull the cover off you. So they were having fun after they sang and everything on the bed. And
What did they say about not noticing that cord?
They said, Samoria's
Turn your
with
side
her
up.
glasses, she can't see very good, and he'll be too excited, says they'll never notice it.
You never did you?
No, they didn't. Anyway, he was in bed there, and the cover started pulling off. I got wise right away. I got up and I yelled out the window, "What's going on out there?" I said. I pulled the cords loose from the rope, or from the quilts.
Oh, that's funny. So how did you feel about marrying a Mormon? Did that bother you?
Well,
or did you
no, it didn't bother me. I didn't belong to any church, and so she said, "I'm a Mormon." I said, "I'd heard about the polygamy stuff." I said, "Oh," I said, "that's where you can have more than one wife." She says, "Not anymore. They stopped that." I said, "Well, why'd they stop a good thing like that?" She didn't appreciate the joke at all. And so, anyway, we weren't active. Wasn't going to church. When we bought this acreage down here at South Center, we had to build a house there on this raw land, and we rent the house next to it. Lived in it while we was building that. Just built.
And this is the house that you built, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that large to start with. It added on.
We paid our first down payment $10.
Wow.
$10 a month. That was Depression days.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
if they started that now, they could. A lot of these young people could have houses. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I built my home though.
Uh-huh. So you built this home?
Yeah, I built this home. I didn't build it this large to start with. And I made it larger later on. Still didn't do a very good job, but anyway, it worked out for us. We just had to skimp and work.
Yeah.
But I always usually had a job. And when the war broke out and everything, World War II, they was needing a lot of men over in the Bremen Navy Yard. And I was a sheet metal worker, so I went over there and got a job right away. And we lived way out here at South Center area, and so I'd have to drive into Seattle and get on the ferry and ride over an hour, I think, on the ferry. And you coming home after work, you had to wait for the ferry. And so I was putting about 13 hours a day in for one day's work. So I wanted to quit. They didn't want me to quit, so I finally asked the mechanic, said, well, write a letter and we'd see. So I wrote a letter that she needed me home there, and I forget, got a fellow to help me, the branch president. We wrote a letter. He needed me in the Sunday work. So I didn't quit then, you know. I just got off Sundays because Roy Marlowe's our branch president, and he wrote up a very nice letter and said we need Brother Frankman to help us with our church, conducting of our church services. And went on to them, and they seen there was religion. So they allowed me, I was working Sundays too, and I got Sunday off. These other guys heard it, and they said, well, I'd like Sunday off too, and they didn't get Sunday off. And I did, because I was one of the counselors in the branch presidency. And that's after I'd been active. As soon as I was baptized, I started getting active, you know.
Why did you decide to join the Mormon church?
No, she didn't push me. I just thought I needed to join church, some church, and I didn't join her right away, Christine. We spent 10 years. 10 years going to church before I was baptized. And when Lorraine was 8 years old, she said, she'd always ask me when had Lorraine blessed. I said, yeah, that's all right, go ahead and have her blessed. And when she was 8 years old, wanted to know if we could have her baptized. I said, yeah, and I got to think about it. I said, well, I think I'll get baptized. And I went to branch president, and I said, I want to be baptized. What will you do? He said, well, okay. So they had a church. I only had one little old church they'd bought from another church, and it had a baptismal font. So we went in there. Lorraine and I were both baptized the same day. And so then I started going to church all the time.
Describe each of your kids to me.
What?
I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell me about each of your kids.
The children?
Yeah.
Well, Lorraine was the firstborn in our family. And when she was born in the Ballard General Hospital. We were living out in Ballard. And they didn't take good care of her in the hospital, and she got an infection in her mouth. And we brought her home, and there's sores in her mouth, and bottle fed, you know, and the milk, I guess, was too rich. and she vomited it up, and she had a running off the bowels, and we had some friends that knew about this baby doctor. So they said, Dad, take her to the baby doctor. So we did, and he looked at her, and he got some stuff and put on her mouth to
Ginger violet.
tincture violet, and that healed that up right away. And then he cut that milk down, made it more water in it, not so rich, you know. And she just went fine after that. And
What was she like when she was a little girl?
she was, we'd fed her so good, she was pretty fat, 9 months old. We were still giving the 2 o'clock bottle. I thought and I'd have to set the alarm, and I had a little cup that had a heating element, and then before I went to bed, I had the bottle all ready and setting in there with a little water in it, and plugged into the electric cord and everything. And when the alarm went off at 2 o'clock, I'd just reach over and turn on the element and heat the bottle, and I'd test it for warmth, not get too warm or and I did just right. And she's asleep, and I'd make her wake her up to get her to take the bottle, and I'd push it around her mouth, and finally she'd get sucking, she'd get it. So we were giving her plenty, and she was getting nice plump kids, you know. At 9 months old, we had down there, they had a doctor who was a clinic for babies, didn't they, dear?
Mm-hmm.
And we took her down there, and it was night, and we mentioned something about the 2 o'clock feed. You getting her up at feeding her at 2 o'clock? So she don't need that. Says if she's hungry, she'll cry, and then you give her the bottle. Boy, I says, that's great. I don't have to wake up at 2 o'clock. So the rest of them, we never got them up at 2 o'clock unless they cried.
Uh-huh.
And so we were, and then we went and see Barbara and your mother and son was all born in this house here. And we had Mako as a midwife.
Oh, really? Mako was the midwife, your sister?
Mm-hmm.
But we had a doctor.
Yeah, we had a doctor, yeah. Oh, yeah, we had a doctor, but she helped too.
Uh-huh.
And
describe Barbara to me. What was she like when she was a baby?
Barbara?
She was, they're all a little different each other. Barbara was, she was really a worried kid. And I know when she was about 8 or 9 years old, and I took her up to the store there, and in school it had just one black kid, you know, only one black. The teacher told him all to be nice to this black kid. So here I'm driving home on this road up here near a little community called Foster, and here this kid was walking, and as we walked by, and Barbara was sitting in she was a skinny little girl full of life, you know. She was in the back seat, and I guess the kid's name was John or something like that. And just as I passed him, she jumped up on her knees on the cushions and hollered and waving, and hi John. I said, what are you doing? She said, well, teacher said it should be nice to him. I said, you don't need to be that nice now. You don't need to be waving at guys like that. I kind of called her down for it. You know, and he was black as black could be, you know.
Yeah, that's the way Barbara always has been, is really friendly, huh?
That's cute.
And so, Anyway, nothing ever could come of that. So I thought, boy, I should go back that way. He's allowed to be coming over to our house. I don't want that. And
We had,
so it never happened. So anyway,
Tell me about Joy.
and beg pardon?
Tell me about your next daughter.
Oh, Joy. Well, she was born in the home too and had Mako and the doctor and everything. So I had this cow to milk. I'm sitting around there, you know, I'm half scared all the time anyway when this is happening.
you know where babies came from.
Yeah. And so I had the cow to take care of, and I had to get some feed down. I had the feed down on the house and kind of partially basement down there. And I went round to get there, and just as I went into there, I heard baby squall, and I says, "Uh-oh, the baby's here," and that was your mother. And everything went real good, I guess, didn't it, dear? And so we took care of her, raised her.
What was she like when she was a little kid?
It was,
She had the cutest little pointed chin you ever
Yeah.
saw when she was born. No dimple, but just
her ears used to bother her something, and she was taking some of the carrots and food or something, started plugging them in her ear, didn't she? We'd tell her, don't do
when she'd
that.
eat.
She was a couple of years old.
I had two high chairs, one for Barbara and one for Joy. And they'd sit on each side of me, and when I was feeding Barbara, why, she would put the carrots in her ears.
Well, tell me about what you did to Lorraine's ears.
Oh, we pinned them back. When I took her to town,
Took
I'd
tape.
take her to town to Seattle, you know, from Ballard, and I'd tape her ears back, and the people look at me and wonder what's wrong with that girl's ears. I didn't
Really?
care. I figured it was me, it was my daughter, so.
Anyway, and so they all got along pretty good, and
Barbara and Joy were inseparable. They were real close. They were just
Yeah.
13 months apart. They were just like twins almost.
anyway, when after your mom come son, you know, and we called a doctor, and it's late, and he's sitting there, and baby wasn't coming. And the doctor wanted to give her some kind of a sedative to quiet it down. And he talked to me twice about it. Finally, I consented. I shouldn't have did it, I guess. And when son was born, he would start to turn blue. And someone said he turned blue. Mom said to put him in a bathtub of cold water. So they had some cold water. They put him in that, and when they put him down in that cold water, he ah! And that brought him back to life, you know. So he was, and the doctor, what did he say? Leave his head low, and block him up so his head would be a little lower in the rest of the body.
In his feet.
And so he
And
never
the
had
doctor
it.
said to me, well, it'd been too bad if he'd have died, seeing as it was a boy. I said, well, it'd been just as bad if it had been a girl, I told him.
So he was a good old doctor, but I shouldn't have consented to give him that sedative. Made kind of passed him, made him pass out. That was dangerous business. That's why he had my permission before he did it. I wasn't aware of all this. After thinking it over, I shouldn't have allowed that to happen. But he wanted to go home and go to bed and get some sleep. So he wasn't born until the next morning, about 8 o'clock, wasn't it, dear? So when he started to get, we called him and he came over. Was he there when the baby was born?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was he like when he was a little boy?
Well, he was like to fish. He and a neighbor boy, Jimmy Snyder, they both liked to fish, and they'd go down that little stream. They allowed kids to fish down, but they wouldn't allow adults. They'd catch little fish like that. And he was about 4 years old, I guess, or 5. Maybe a little older. Might have been 6 or 8. And anyway, he just grew up with fishing. And when he went to school, he learned how to make ties, these fly ties and stuff for fishing. So he became quite a fisherman, son does. He likes to fish.
What about Carol?
Carol, she was a lot younger, and your mom just worshipped her. She was so happy to have a little baby sister. And Carol was a smart little rascal. And anything didn't go sooner, she could cry a little bit. And she'd be laughing and crying and laughing. And so I could see and I'm sitting there, and she started crying. I says, Carol, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to... Oh, she just had her 5th birthday. She's 5 years old now. Just had the birthday and a big celebration. And she's 5 years old. And she started crying. And I said, Carol, if you don't stop crying, I'm going to put you back to 4. She stopped just like that. And she looked at me, and I just looked like I could do anything, you know. Sat there, and she looked at me rather. After about 2 minutes or 3, she said, rather subdued, you can't do that. I said, you'll see. Boy, she was afraid to cry out around me. I'm going to put her back 4. I kid her dead about that. Son used to say, well, she can shed the tears, said she should be an actor. She could cry 1 minute and laugh the next.
Tell me about when you decided, what the family decided to go get sealed in the temple. Tell me about that.
In winter of 79 and 80, we decided...
Winter of when?
The winter of 1979 and 80.
79? No. 59? Maybe 49?
Oh, wait, yeah, 49. Oh, yeah,
49?
Yeah, I'm way off here. It was 49 and 50. So, weather was bad and no work for me because things are slack. So we decided to go to the temple. We had a bishop named Jardine, and he said, the Salt Lake Temple was going to go, you know, that's the only one around, I guess. And so Bishop Jardine said, you won't make it in your old car, you take my new Ford. He had a brand new Ford. So he loaned that to us to drive to Salt Lake in. And it was bad, cold. So we had all the kids. Rain was about 17 then. And if she's 18, she had to take out her own endowments. So to have her sealed to us as a child, he couldn't do it after 18. So we wanted to get all 5 of them sealed to us as children. So we got in the car and started out, and we got over almost to Ellensburg, coming, and it was down in grade too, and the car started not getting any gas. And this man I'd never seen before, he was in a pickup, and he drove up, he says, what's the matter, are you out of gas? I said, no, I got plenty of gas, but the car don't work, I can't get any gas. He says, your gas line is froze up, he said. He said, I'll just push you on into the garage. It's 4 or 5 miles maybe. So he got behind me and just pushed me along, and in this garage went in there, and they thawed it out, and then they put something in the gas tank to dilute it so it wouldn't freeze. And so we went on, and we drove that night, and we got way over in eastern Washington there, the Tri-Cities, and that bridge, the river had ice in it, and a big lot of ice, and tore the whole bridge out. So then we had to go north, clear up almost to Spokane to another bridge where we get across, and we did that. Then we drove back down that night, and as we come through Walla Walla, Washington, over on the other side of the river, the windshield was almost froze over. Our swiper just had little holes to see through. And we drove as far as Pendleton. That was not too far, not 25 or 30 miles from Walla Walla to Pendleton, Oregon. And rented a motel there, room there, and we had another lady with us. Did you know, I don't know where you knew the Marlows, or you didn't know? Did you know?
Inez?
Let me see, it was, what was the younger one? Ines Marlowe, do you know her? Her sister was with the one that died of cancer. She was single. She was with us, but we stayed in that motel that night, and it had a propane heater in there. And he didn't tell us, but he didn't have very much in there. And he adjusted it down low, and he says, now this would be just about right, and this would just about do you. He didn't tell us we might run out. The minute he left, these women said, oh, it's cold in here, turn that up, turn that thing up. And I guess it wasn't a couple of 3 hours, and the thing was out of fuel. And we woke up that morning, and boy, it's like a refrigerator in there. We didn't have any heat. It was 25 degrees below zero.
Oh my gosh.
And we drove, we got up and got started, and we drove. What are you doing?
You're on camera.
I can't eat. I shouldn't eat this. Anyway, we drove from, and got to Pendleton, Oregon. The next morning we got up and it was 25, and the propane tank was empty and didn't have any fuel. And it was 25 degrees below zero. We got out and got started. My hands had gloves on, they're still cold. And as we went up over that mountain. See, Pendleton is a big mountain they call the Blue Ridge Mountain. We had to go up that. And as we got way up almost to the top there, we seen that propane truck that was bringing the fuel to them. It went over a bank and was down over a bank, and it was stuck there. I said, well, that's why he didn't have any fuel. And so we drove and got over the other side, next town over the hump there. Can't call the name of it right now. And we kept on driving. And the roads, you couldn't see the roads. The wind was blowing the snow. There was snow and cold. And we just drove, probably 30 or 35 miles an hour maybe, because it's slippery. And we drove, at 2 o'clock in the morning we got into Ogden, Utah. And we rented rooms there and stayed there that night. Got up the next morning about 8 o'clock and went into the temple. Stayed there all day, and so we'd had, your mother and all the children sealed to us. And a lady come to me, and my father, see, my mother was the second family, and we were his second wife. She was his second wife. The other wife had died. But anyway, this lady comes and said, well, her name was Barbara Gupka. Said Barbara Gupka. And I said, she said, what about Barbara Gupka? I said, why? What about her? They said, well, aren't you going to do the work for her? He said, they shouldn't rob the dead. The chance to be sealed. So I said, well, that's all right. Go ahead. So we had both families sealed. Had both wives sealed. He didn't have their children sealed to them. And we did all that work there. Had them sealed. Spent all day there in the temple that day. And there was a military army base there out there from Salt Lake, 20 miles or so. And this, she was, what was Ines? The other one was the one that died. She said, well, I've got a brother and it's a bishop out here. We went out there and stayed all night. And then the next day we started home. We had quite a problem. It was bad. And we got traveling along there. We stopped someplace to get gas. And they said, you can turn off up here as a secondary highway. It's a shortcut. You can go through there and you save about 50 miles. And so I thought that was a good idea, and we got there, and I guess the ice had melted, it was slippery and frozen again, and I went in this little town called Star, Idaho, and as I coming into it, I woke up to the fact that it was icy and dangerous. So I went down through this main street of this little town, and one time I was headed right into a storefront with big plate glass windows, but I'd spin it and make it go the other way, you know. And so we got down there, and I got down about a block, and I seen a gas station, and they had the snow piled up there about 8 or 10 feet high. So I headed the car right into that snowbank and stopped. I was afraid of stepping on the brakes, and I got out and I couldn't hardly stand up. It was so slippery. And we got back in the car, and I put her in low and just barely moving along. And there was a big ditch there, and 4 or 5 cars down in these ditches. Had already gone down the ditch. So we went up to get back up on the main highway. It was up grade a little bit, and we couldn't. The wheels started spinning and couldn't make it. So the women got out and just took the car and turned it around, and I let it coast right back down to this house that was there, and went in there and talked to them about it. And he said, well, I know where we can go and get you rooms for the night. So he went with me. And by the way, he was an inactive church member. And so we went over and got the rooms, and I came back and got the women. And we went over there, and it was kind of had a big dining room table in the center of it. And I stretched out on that and almost passed out because exhaustion, driving all that, it set you, it caused you where it was, what do you call it, where you got too much stress. But I was all right. And I rested there, and we slept there that night. The next morning we got up and was able to get out of there and get back on the main highway. And we tore his bumper off his car, or wrecked it, twisted it up. We got hit a guardrail with it, So I fixed that, paid for that when I got back. And it took us quite a while to get home. And we was coming back the next day, and it's a big mountain we had, hill, quite a large mountain. And I looked up ahead, and there was 2 cars stuck there. So I went, I just give it so much gas to keep the momentum up, and I was able to get around those 2 cars without getting stuck. And we drove, I don't think, did we get home that night? I think we,
I can't remember.
I don't know, maybe we had to stay another night. I think we did. But we sure had a hard time getting home.
Was it worth it?
Oh yeah.
When we got home, tell them about the house.
Yeah, the water had frozen up and was running all over the floor.
And the bathroom, wash
Bathroom,
basin had frozen right
little
off the
wash
wall.
basin was hanging on the wall, and when the pipes froze, expansion of the pipes made it raised that little wash basin up, and it fell off down and broke the pipes, the little tubes that it was connected to, it broke it off, and the water was just running out. And I guess the floor leaked enough that it was running down through the cracks. So I had to turn everything off, and there was valves on. I shut them off and cleaned up the mess and fixed it up and got it fixed. Had to fix it all up again.
Up the floor, we were about an inch of water all over the floor.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So now, when did you move your house up here, up on the hill?
1959.
Tell me about why you moved your house.
Well, this building, the South Center is being built down there, and they wanted to buy you out. So they give us a pretty good offer. And
They needed 6 acres down there to build.
We'd sold part of it, and we had 4 acres left, and we sold it to them.
How did you sell it to them? Did you wheel and deal them, or?
Yeah,
We were
they
the
was
last one to
cheap.
sit there.
They was going to say 18,000. I said, no, you'll never get this for not 18,000. And they talk, and they try to scare me, and they say, well, I'll show you in Seattle. You want to go for a ride? I'll show you back. I know where that Denny regrade was. And somehow, 1 or 2 houses, they left them up on and dug all around it, and it was about 8 feet off higher there than the rest of the ground around it. And they was trying to scare me. I said, well, I know all about that. I said, I've been in there, I've seen all that. And finally they came to my terms. And we got a pretty good price, but not like it'd be, it wasn't inflation then, you know. So $20,000 you'd get a pretty good home. So I think we got about 55,000 or something like that. And
He called me, I was working at Boeing's, he called me and told me, well, I'll quit today.
So
Seemed
we
like such a
sold it.
windfall for us, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So we sold it, and then we had to rent another place, and then we moved this house up here. And we took us a while to get this and get a basement under it and get it settled up.
Well, tell me about, why did you decide to get a plumbing license?
Well, I had this sheet metal tool and I had plumbing tools, and I'm retired now, and I thought I'd get a little work. So I did. I got a license and started doing plumbing as well as sheet metal work.
How old were you when you decided to do that?
Hmm?
How old were you when you got your plumbing license?
I think I was retired.
He was 70 years old.
Yeah, I think it was around 70. And so I advertised, and I did quite a little bit of work. And we went on a mission, and I never did anything about it after that.
Tell me about your mission. Why did you decide to go on a mission?
Well, they asked us to.
Who asked you? Your bishop, or
Beg pardon?
did your bishop ask you, or?
Yeah, I think Bishop. Yeah, they asked us to go on a mission. We thought about it and took us a little while to decide. So we went on a mission. And that was, I told you all about how hard it was to get there.
No. Did you go to the MTC first, or did you go?
Yeah. We're down there for about 3 weeks, 4.
Now, weren't you at the MTC with one of your grandsons?
Yeah, Barry was there. Yeah, everybody thought it was pretty great. We had grandson, nice grandson, hollered hello, grandma and grandpa. Barry Pappenfuss.
I could smell it when she put it up first.
So we,
You said you had a hard time getting to the mission field, or Kentucky?
well, we didn't have too much
Is it
problem.
getting too hot?
We took our time. We had a lot of time. They told us we had a certain length, so we had to wait before we go in. They told us when they could report in. Could have got in sooner if I knew it. The mission president said, well, I told him I stayed in a motel here last night. He said, well, you should have come up here. Well, I said, we got the word that we're supposed to come in on this date. Didn't want to come a day early. Oh, he said, if I'd known that, yeah, I'd have had you come here.
Tell me some interesting stories or some memorable things that happened on your mission.
Well, I don't know. We did quite a lot of tracking too, you know. And we did a lot of fellowship from the inactive. And we got a lot of them to come to church with us, you see. And just doubled the number of attendance records. So we were credited quite a lot for that.
Did you want to stop the tape and we'll do some more later?
Yeah, I think so.
Right?
Sit right in.
Yak!
No.
Is it on? Yes.
Yeah, I'm recording.
Hi.
Say hi, Nat. Say hi.
Say, what day is this? This is October, no, March 20th, on Friday evening, 1992. And this is Diana Tusher.
Diana, look at the camera.
Diana, look at Daddy.
Hi, Diana.
Bob and Joy Carson and Mark Carson and Michelle Sifkes. Huh? Can you say hi? Yak yak?
Hi, Grandpa. I'm zoomed up on you.
Say hi.
Grandma.
Michelle.
What are you doing?
And
Diana.
there's Corinne.
Say hi, Daddy. Up and down. Oh, is that the wiggle worm?
Yeah, I'm zooming back out. Now maybe I can get a picture.
Okay. Yeah, we got a tripod in the
Yeah,
car.
just watch it levitate there while you go.
Should we go get the tripod in the car?
No, it's alright. How do you do it? How do you?
It's on, it's taping.
Grandma's. I gotcha. Where's the little thing, Zoom thing?
On the front there by your finger.
See, you move that lever up and down. The other side, other side. See that lever by the lens? And it moves up and down. Yeah, that. Move it up and down.
I don't know.
Now, let me do it.
I'll do it. Here, I got it. I got it.
Okay.
There we go.
Wave to Michelle. Wave to Michelle.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Get Diana freaking out.
Say twinkle twinkle.
I do. It's on Crane and Fawn.
Say twinkle twinkle.
Okay.
Is that good? Shall we take one picture out of Grandma's camera now and see if we get with all of us here?
Okay.
Vaughn, just let her take a picture. You sit there and let Michelle take a picture of
Start, Mark.
You and Grant, everybody here.
How do you start?
Okay, here. It's not
The green light will come on.
Yeah.
flash takes a while.
Diana, the green light is on.
It's an Indian style.
Say hi.
Are you Indian?
Say hi, Michelle. Say hi, Michelle.
Okay, the red light's on.
Diana, you're kicking Grandma's head.
Did you switch that thing on the bottom?
3 and 6 actually.
I thought I didn't need to.
No, you don't.
How would you
The
get
back
started?
of the
The red light.
It might be low.
I think she.
Mark, don't twist it. Don't twist it.
What?
Don't do it. Chris will be mad if you do it.
It's ready.
All right.
Okay, one more.
Smile.
Smile.
There we go.
There it went.
Hey,
Hey, Hannah.
hey, Mark.
Okay, good.
The camera.
Yes. Yes, silly. Yes, silly.
Yeah.
Did you say one?
1, 2.
Can you count?
How many?
Did you
How
say
many?
one?
How many can you count?
2?
1, 2, 3, 4.
She can say it, Grandpa. Let her say it.
Can you count? How many?
One. She's not going to.
We're trying to get
She
her
said
to say
Grandpa
one,
can
too.
count.
I
You
thought
I'll
don't
it
have
listen
any
to Grandpa
teeth. You
count.
don't have
thought
any
it was so
teeth.
cute the
Grandpa
other
your
night.
teeth.
She don't have any teeth.
What?
She has a
Oh,
tongue.
did you? Oh,
Hannah,
wow.
say teeth.
No teeth.
Teeth.
Oh, oh yeah. Did you get?
He was a big mixture. He had white and yellow and black spots. He killed the biggest rattlesnakes going.
Really?
Yeah, he used to kill the rattlesnakes. This rattlesnake would curl up and he's rattling, and the old rover circling about 20 feet away from him, barking all the time, going around and around and around. And this old snake had to keep his head turning, and pretty soon he'd get that old dog, this snake going around. Pretty soon he'd go, "Rrr," and run in just like he was going to jump right on top of it. And he knew just how far the snake could reach, and he'd stop. He'd run his feet in the gravel and dirt, stop. The snake thought he was coming on. He'd strike out there and hit, stretched out full length, and that dog would grab